Welcome, everybody. Tonight is the first night of Python programming here at Gateway Technical College for the fall semester of 2025. This is an online synchronous section. Also, we think of it as the Zoom session or Zoom version of the class. We are going to be beginning by going through the first two units of the course tonight, and the main focus of this video is Unit 0, which is the Getting Started unit. We will be going through the syllabus in just a few moments and a bunch of other material that's present here. I will be activating some content, like for right now, for example, this Zoom information is obscured from you guys, but now it is visible. Obviously, you guys know where to go because I did send you links via email and notifications a few times. Unit 0 is a fairly, actually the first two units, Unit 0 and Unit X, are kind of atypical units of instruction, because Unit 0 is really about just getting started, like really just, getting our feet on the ground. And Unit X talks about a topic that is often, omitted, from a lot of programming instruction, but I feel it's very important. And then when we start to get into the numbered units, Unit 1, 2, 3, and beyond, you'll notice that we'll get into this groove that we'll do. Most weeks, actually every week of this class following tonight, when we begin the session, promptly at 7:50, I will do this activity called a Kahoot. And I know some of you know what that is already. And it's basically like an online challenge quiz to reinforce the lecture materials that you should have absorbed before coming to class. And so my thinking is, I expect you guys, before you come to a class session, to watch the lecture videos and read through all the links I will provide for reference material. So in other words, you will have read and watched videos before you come to class. Now be mindful of the fact we have a 2-hour session, but normally if I was to do this on a full face-to-face classroom, this would be a 4-hour class. We'd be here all evening. So in order to gain back 2 hours in our day, right, what we do is we pre-record the lectures and some of those materials that you absorb on your own. You don't need me to, do that lecture again during the Zoom session. Then when we come to class, our primary focus will be, we'll do our Kahoot to reinforce those lecture materials, possibly earn extra credit if you win. And then we'll go right into coding through the exercises. So that'll take a week or two to get to that mode, real frankly. But once we get into that mode, you'll grow to appreciate it, because the lecture is brief, and then we get right into coding, and the coding, of course, is peppered with lecture as well. Because many of you are brand new to writing computer programs, this is kind of, I'm going to call it a gentle class. It's kind of tutorial style. So I'll give you the exercises, which ideally you would work on your own in advance. But ultimately, I will code through all the homework during class time, right? And this is a really kind of cool way to do it, because that way you can try the stuff, see how you did, and then you can see how I did it. And maybe your way is great, maybe my way is a little better or different, but you'll learn along the way. For those of you that are completely confused by, I don't know what to do next, it'll be a wonderful way to get introduced to programming, because like I said, it's kind of a gentle approach. Python, arguably right now, is perhaps the most important programming language out there, based on a few different things. Its popularity mostly just as a general purpose programming language, the fact that it's very lightweight and can work on just about any system, but also because of the explosion of generative AI. Almost all AI coding and data analysis and data science and machine learning and deep learning, and oh my God, it just goes on and on, is all based predominantly on Python for whatever reason. I don't know why that became the language to do it with. Probably because it's really easy to learn, and there's lots of great open source libraries that you can apply and get some pretty slick effects without not a lot of effort. We are an introductory class. So the assumption is you're coming off the street, you may have never touched a computer before to do IT work, and I'm assuming that most of you have not coded before. I know that's not the case. So I have some people here that are already have taken several of my AI classes and have done some pretty advanced coding. And I know a few of you that are already out in the field working as coders, like, Jonathan, hello, for example, like you're out there working, and a few others, right? Well, I got two, so now I got two Jonathans and two Waynes. How do you like that? That's pretty weird. Um, now, if you guys give me like, if you get like two people with my name, then we really got something going, right? All right. So since we're on that topic already, some of you wonder how to pronounce my name. If you're familiar with the um, chips that you can buy at, like usually at like Hispanic grocery stores, are called Takis, right? That's actually how you say my name. And I know some of you guys are probably fans of them. I absolutely hate them. Uh, but ever since those chips came out, now people know how to say my name. But here at Gateway, just about everybody calls me Ty, which is kind of just a nickname version of my name. You can call me Mr. Kinnis or Ty or Takis, whatever you're comfortable with. I'm okay with it. Um, and I do like to be on a first name basis generally with my students. All right. So the Zoom information is here at the top, just in case you forget. I have a little quick overview. We're going to look at this stuff in the syllabus, so I'm going to just kind of glide past it. There's also a little bit of a welcome message here in Unit 0. And many of you have received this information in the form of email announcements. And by the way, if you haven't picked up on that fact, whenever I send out an announcement in this course, it will appear in the announcements area or the course homepage. And now that the course is active, whenever I send one out, you will see it in your email, right? And therefore, it is important that you check your student email often, right? Especially if you take a lot of different classes. I will not call you typically. It'll be super, super rare if that ever happens. I will not text you, same, right? So email becomes your primary form of communication. I will not email your personal email accounts, even though I have access to what they are. So it's on you to check your email. I would argue daily, a few times a day. And if I were you, I would just load the account into your other devices, wherever you get your email. It can coexist with other Google accounts on your device, by the way. So be mindful that that's our primary communication mechanism, is basically email. All right. So going past the welcome message, I now have some video postings, and this is a pretty typical thing in my courses. Every unit of instruction will have video postings. The one that I'm recording right now as I speak will appear here in this spot where it says new videos will appear here. It'll be there tomorrow with a link. I publish my videos on YouTube. That I just like that platform for all the different tools that it brings. The Unit 0 videos don't usually go public, but all the other ones do. If you'd rather be notified by YouTube when the videos are available, you can subscribe to the channel. I appreciate it if you do that. It helps me to track things and see how many views I'm getting and stuff. But YouTube does a really wonderful job of automatically closed captioning everything if you need that. I'm a big fan, honestly. I watch Netflix and turn on closed captioning just because, and it also has a speed control when you're watching video. So like if I'm like droning on in my lecture and I'm taking a really long time doing it, you can bump up the speed to like 1.25 or 1.5 and play it a little bit faster and gain back some time in your day, right? Then if I say something important, you can rewind and slow it down, right? I think the YouTube videos are really kind of a great tool. They're fully transcripted. And plus you have all the other tools that YouTube has available as well. I think it's particularly useful if, like I said something in class and you missed it, and you can go back to it the next day and watch it again and rewind it and play it over. Or if for some reason you miss a class or you're late, you can catch up on the stuff that you missed. So videos are important. I do include older videos in the course shell, by the way, that I think are still pertinent. You can see I have one from last fall in here. That I left. If you guys want to watch it, you can. It's basically the same stuff I'm doing right now, by the way. So the new videos are always the best ones to watch. Right, now we're going to dig into the syllabus. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the syllabus link here. This will bring it up on screen. Of course, if you want, you can load it up or download it, or heck, you could print it if you want. I have people that do that. There is some really good reasons for actually downloading and saving your syllabi. One of them is, if you ever go on to let's say a different school and you want to transfer this course, sometimes they won't transfer it unless you can provide a syllabus, right? Especially if you go to a 4-year institution, they're like, well, we want to see if this Python course is as good as our Python course. So if you had a syllabus, we can figure that out, right? And so that's one reason why you might actually want to save it. I'm just putting it out there. It's not an obligation. And I'm seeing that I already screwed up one thing in my syllabus. So, right. And when I catch mistakes, I get the extra credit. But if you catch mistakes, email it to me and I might consider giving you extra credit. So I highlighted the one mistake, which is there are required meetings for this class. This is the 152-081-2W51 Zoom session of this class. It is a 3-credit course. We start today on September 8th. We finish on December 8th. That's 13 weeks from now. Goes really, really fast, folks. It's a very, very quick semester. It doesn't seem like it is. It seems like that's like, forever and a day away. But I assure you, you will blink your eyes and it will be the holidays and the course will be done. Mark my words. We are in online synchronous mode or Zoom mode every Monday from 7:50 to 9:50 p.m. We will meet here. We will start promptly at 7:50 with Kahoots. So please try to be on time, especially if you want to win the Kahoot. We will do a practice one a little bit later. We're meeting on Zoom, so there's no building to go to, no room to go to, which is wonderful. My contact info is present here within the syllabus. It's also in a area of the course shell entitled Syllabus Calendar and Instructor Information, so you can find that stuff there as well. Once again, email is the primary form of communication. If you happen to call me and leave a voicemail, it will email me anyhow. And frankly, I'm never at my desk, right? I do see that I have a question here. Yash, you have a question. What is your question, sir?
I have one question. Hello, by the way.
Hello.
Yeah. And I have one question about if we cannot come to this class, what happened?
That's on you.
Like if we're absent.
If you're absent, well, there's no penalty for being absent per se, but I do grade on participation. My thinking is this: you signed up for a class where we have regular Zoom sessions, and I assume you want to get your money's worth. So my assumption is that you would show up every class and stay for the duration of the session, right? And that's the expectation. Like otherwise, you should have signed up for one of the sections that has no meetings, right? So if you don't come to class, you can still watch the videos and stuff. You can still do the homework, but you might get a little bit of a bump on the participation points because you're not coming to the session like you said you would. Right?
No, but like 1 or 2 times if you cannot come, like 1 or 2 times.
You know what? My assumption, Yash, is like I'm going to act like an employer here. No, you're supposed to be here every week. I will, right? That's my thought, right? What you do, you're an adult. You can make your own choices of whether or not you come to class. I've certainly had times where I've had stuff going on and cancel class for whatever reason. But when I do that, I video record everything. So there is the safety net of the videos if you do miss a class session. But my expectation is you sign up for a Zoom class, you're coming to Zoom. So I hope that answers that question.
Like if sometime came up, right? Sometime any like serious reason came up, like to not be in the class.
I'm not sure I'm understanding you.
It's like if we cannot come for like any solid reason, like if something problem or something else.
Yeah,
we cannot join the class.
Let me have you think about it like this. This isn't high school where I'm taking attendance and I care if you show up. The truth is I really don't care. I get paid either way. My assumption is if you want to succeed at the class, you take it seriously. When you sign up to come, you come to the class. It's really as simple as that. If you're worried about losing points over it, I mean, that's a potential, right? But the expectation is that you're present. All right. I am going to move forward with materials in the interest of efficient time usage here. But thank you for the question. And I know that other people obviously must have the same question. If you can't make a night of class, you can't make a night of class, folks. I mean, that's just how it is, right? It happens, right? We all are humans. We have lives. We have situations. We have families. We have homes. We have children. We have pets, yada, 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 right? And things happen, real frankly. I will do my best to be here every single week the whole time. right? Because that's what I'm paid to do. So that, I stick to that. And those of you that have had me in class know that about me. I think the whole time I've been here at Gateway, I've had one sick day in 11 years. I'll just kind of put it like that. Yeah. That's pretty impressive, right? But you know what? If you looked at my schedule, you'd go, but you're barely working. No, I work a lot, even when you think I'm not working. All right, let's dig into the core of the course here. This is the course description. This is also present in the course shell. Basically, what we're teaching to, right? So there's a brief description. This is kind of, I think, the same thing that appears in the registration system. I'm listing our old textbook as optional. I know some of you may have taken this course before, maybe didn't finish it or dropped it or whatever, or withdrew. So if you have the book, it's really a great textbook, especially the electronic copies. You do not need to buy this, right? And as I said before, this is like, if you buy it off the shelf, it's like a $250 book. I think it's worth every penny. It's really well put together. The ebook has like built-in Python interpreters, so you can actually run code inside the book, which is kind of neat. The lecture materials that I have embedded into the course and the PowerPoints come from this textbook. And I think it's really, really well done. It covers everything from just like basic programming to making website backends or doing data science or doing business analytics or whatever. It kind of covers a full gambit of that content. So if you have money burning a hole in your pocket, you can always buy it. You can always buy a used copy, but it is not required. You do not need to spend money on it. For most of you, having access to the PowerPoints in my lectures in the form of videos will be more than adequate. I will also be providing, in lieu of a textbook, a rich set of links each week to mostly stuff on W3 Schools. That's like my number one site to go to as a Python reference, because it really has an excellent reference section in terms of how the language works and how certain commands operate. But that's really it for materials. And our goal, ultimately, both in the AI data program and the web program, was to eliminate that cost for students. Because when you're paying $500 for a course, and then you got to pay 50% more to buy a book, that's kind of pretty heavy. Jonathan, thank you for throwing it in the chat. Jonathan found a copy for $49, if you want. Once again, not obligatory. I just think it's kind of a good read, when it comes down to it. When we look at required materials, we're going to talk about technology and software pretty soon. But basically, you need a modern computer system with stable, high-speed internet access. Hopefully your computer is less than a few years old. I will give you some hardware recommendations. Honestly, you can code Python on some pretty low-level equipment. But if you really intend to be in IT as a profession, folks, like if you were a carpenter, you wouldn't buy, a $5 hammer from the dollar store. You would go out to, Ace Hardware and get like the $150 Stanley, super hammer. You know what I mean? Because you're a pro. And that's kind of what I hope for you guys ultimately in IT, is that you get really good gear to work with. Any of the software that we use in this class is available free of charge and or open source, by the way. And so there's no additional expenditures to make. We tend to recommend that you work on a Windows computer because all the demonstrations I do will be on Windows machines. And frankly, folks, 95% of the planet is working on Windows machines, at least, for day-to-day computing. All of the stuff that we do here will work on a Linux computer. It will work on a Macintosh just fine. And we'll talk about that more as we move forward. Once again, no cost to any of the software we use. This next section, the course competency, is a listing of basically the things that I am going to teach you before you walk out of here today, or the semester, not today, the semester, obviously. And we will cover all of these topics and then some, right? And I'm also well aware of where this course leads in our program tracks. So like if you're an AI data person, we will start to introduce you to stuff that will benefit you in that program. And for web developers, we're going to teach you stuff that will help you in that program. And I'll make note of when we hit those things. But generally we're learning basic programming here, and we're going to take it all the way up from like simple like output to the screen to creating object-oriented applications with database interactivity towards the end of the course, and then doing a touch a little data science stuff at the end as well. That's where we plan to journey with this, right? As we kind of move through the next section of the syllabus here, we start to talk once again about the attendance and participation policy. Yeah, and you know what? I'm noticing the messages that are flying in the chat, so I do want to address some of them. It is possible for you to join the session twice, folks, right? And what I recommend to some people, because some people have desktop computers, they don't have cameras or microphones, it's absolutely fine to join with a secondary device like a tablet or a phone, because those do typically have cameras and microphones. So that's a strategy. Or some people don't have two screens, so you can like have one computer on Zoom and another computer to code with, right? That's totally allowable. I'm totally fine with that. Were there any other weird questions that I missed here? Nope, no, I think I'm good. All right. So going back to this attendance and participation policy, well, real frankly, and I'll tell you this just to reiterate it, I do not grade on attendance. You want to be here, be here. You don't want to be here, don't be here. But then don't sign up for Zoom class next time. You know, this is my recommendation. Participation, I do grade though, and participation takes a few different things. Showing up is one of them, right? It's easier to participate if you're there. Keeping up with the homework, communicating with your instructor, logging into the course and doing the activities, all of that stuff is tracked, right? And the more you do that, the more you're participating. If you're not coming to class, you're not doing your work, you're not communicating, you're not logging into the course, you're going to see that participation score drop and maybe not even be existent, right? But if you show up every week and you talk to me and you do your stuff, you will get all the participation points. It's kind of a gimme on points. So in terms of the point value here, you can see the relative percentages of where your points will reside. So we will have 2 exams in this class. There's a midterm and a final, and a coding final that we do, which is basically an exercise. We have a lot of assignments. So like every week there will be programming assignments to complete. That's a majority of where your score is. And then I do the participation points, where it's basically a point a week. And that's a judgment call on my part, but I already told you how I judge it. You show up, you do your stuff, communicate, stay active in the course electronically, and you will get those points. Not do those things, those points will start to dwindle. But as you do more of it, those points come up. So they're kind of reciprocal with your effort. Right? All in all, you know, for any of you that have had me in class before, you know my grading system. I use what I call a non-weighted grading system. So if you guys are used to, like, let's say you take a quiz and it's 100 points, and you write a paper and it's 100 points, and then they weight it, you know, with a percentage to tell you what it's actually worth in the course. That's not how I operate. I find that really confusing, frankly. From an instructor standpoint, I can only imagine how confusing it is from a student standpoint. What I do is I use what I call a 100-point system. There's 100 points on the table that you can earn. Each point is worth 1% of your grade. Ultimately, what you're trying to do is earn a minimum of 74 points to earn at least a grade of C. If you notice this little quip down here at the bottom, for any class that you're taking towards a degree here at Gateway in the IT programs, so if you're working on your AI data specialist degree, or if you're working on your web developer or web programmer degree, you have to earn a C or better, 74 points or more, in order for this course to count. If you don't hit that level, if you get 73.99 points, you don't have 74, you will have to take this course again. And just be mindful of that. Now, if you're getting to the point where I think you might not reach that level, I will reach out to you and I'll try to work something out with you. But typically, if you show up every week, you do your stuff, you do it on time and turn it in and participate, this will be really easy. Be mindful of the fact that I help you complete your homework. All the assignments, 68% of your grade, whatever that is, I'm going to help walk you through doing that, right? So there's not a lot of panic that should get instilled in you. My goal here is to teach you, not to punish you, right? I don't want to like bring you into class and then be difficult on you. That's not what my goal is. My goal is to teach you this technology because it's really important and to help you in the process of it. And I get that if you've never done this before, it feels very, very overwhelming when you first learn how to code and when you're first learning how to work computers. It really is, right? Couple that with like, I got to log into Brightspace and email and my gateway, and you got like 50,000 systems you're logging into, and you're trying to keep them all straight. And then you got a different class that has homework too, and that instructor does it differently. I get that it's very, very overwhelming feeling, right? So that my goal is to help you through the process. And once you start to get comfortable here at Gateway, like you take this course and like, oh, I did it. It was great. I got it. You'll see that the subsequent courses will be a lot easier because you'll get the flow of it. Also, if you're in the web program or you're in the AI data program, you will see me a lot, right? Currently, I'm teaching all the AI courses, and I teach a lot of the intro level and capstone level web stuff. So the in-between stuff, you'll run into Christian Herr, Christopher Venkis, on occasion, Wendy Revolinsky. Those are our primary instructors in the web program and in the AI data program, right? So you'll get to know us really, really well, right? We do have a really excellent group of faculty. All of them have been here quite a while. Some of you have had classes with them before, so you know what I'm talking about. They're very smart. They're people. They're very nice people. They're very knowledgeable people. And all of us come out of industry. So I always tell my students that, like, if you go to like a university, you might take a class, somebody's teaching you how to code and they've never done it professionally. And I think that's really weird, right? Here at Gateway, we don't get our jobs unless we've had significant occupational experience in exactly what we're teaching, right? So all of us come out of industry having done this, have had full careers in many cases doing this work. My background predominantly came from business and then freelancing and web for decades, right? And I worked in IT infrastructure and computer support and consulting and all sorts of stuff. All right, so let's keep moving on this grading stuff here. We will have 2 exams. So we'll have a midterm exam, which will be due on October 17th. We'll talk about that later. We'll have a final exam at the end of the course. And then there's a final programming assignment. I never do exams during class time, so we'll never come to like a Zoom session. I'm like, okay, take the test. We don't do that, right? You will take the test on your own time. I use these sessions to teach you more, right? Not to test you, right? So those will be done on your own time. Late work policies. This is a pretty important area. Generally speaking, any assignment I put out there is going to have a due date. When do you turn in homework? Okay, the correct answer is before the due date, right? That's when you turn in work, not like 10 seconds before, or whatever. Real frankly, if something is a tad bit late, and I always say this to my students, because most everything's due at 11:59 p.m. I'm not sitting there at midnight waiting to grade your work, folks, right? I'm in bed watching Netflix or something, or doing something fun, right? So if it's a little bit late, a few hours late, or it comes in the next morning, I usually don't even mark it late. But when you get beyond that point, there will be late penalties for the work. There's a little bit of a safety net, though. This is the 3rd bullet here. If you're partially done with the work and you turn it in before the due date, I will let you work on it for 1 more week with no late penalty, right? And be mindful, I'm helping you with your homework, and the videos will be out there too that show you how to do the homework. So there's not really a lot of excuse for not getting it done. When stuff is done correctly, it's on time, and you follow the directions, it's a no-brainer. You'll get all your points. It's not even a question. If it's late, it's not done correctly, or you're not following instructions, if it's late, you'll definitely lose points. If you're not following instructions or not getting it quite right, I often will give you the opportunity, especially if it's on time, to fix it and get the rest of your points back, right? I'm not here to punish you. I'm here to teach you, right? And eventually you'll get how I do things, and you'll roll with it. A big part of what we're going to do, real frankly, is coding. And I'll launch your code files. so I can run it in case I need to, and I'll want screenshots of it. And I'll show you how to do all of that. Um, the screenshots, it seems kind of silly since I have the code files, but seeing the code on your system with screenshots, like if you got like red underlines in your IDE, I know your code's bad, right? So it's really easy to spot. But I also want to see the program running on your system, right? And it proves to me that it worked, right? All of that's pretty easy to do. Remember, all of it is guided. Once you get an assignment or an item that's over 2 weeks late, be mindful of this. You are only going to receive half the points on it. So if you're in the habit of like, it's like once in a while I'll get somebody that'll wait to the end of the course and then try to turn everything in. And guess what? When you're only getting half the points on everything, it's not really a recipe for success, obviously, right? And then you'll be struggling. The other thing I will throw out there, I throw a lot of extra credit opportunities into the class. So the Kahoots happen every week. So you can get a point potentially every week if you win the Kahoot every time. Almost every unit, not every unit, but almost every unit has 1 or 2 extra credit assignments. So if you want to expand your knowledge or do a little bit more or earn some points, you have that opportunity. Or let's say you forgot an assignment earlier in the course and you want to make up the points, you have that option, right? So be mindful of that. Nothing will be accepted past the last day of class. This class ends formally, even though it will end at 10 o'clock on December 8th. You have technically until midnight to turn in work on that day. Grades will post by noon on December 9th. That's how I operate. So I will remind you of all that when we get there. If you have work that you just can't get to, I have this really goofy little mechanism that I've kind of kept in my syllabi for forever now, which is the get out of homework free coupon, right? And Jonathan, I see you smiling because you remember this one, right? It's like a safety net, right? Here's how it works. If you miss an assignment or something, you just can't get to it, you had a bad week or a bad day or whatever, no judgment. You can come into the syllabus, screenshot that coupon, turn it in place of your homework, and I will give you 2 points. If it's a 2-point assignment, great, you got 2 points. If it's a 4-point assignment, well, you only got 2 points, but 2 points is better than no points. If you use the coupon and then later change your mind and want to do the assignment, that's okay. You can do that too. Late penalties may apply, so just be mindful. But usually this is something that's better to use towards the end of the course, not at the beginning, right? I'm just putting it out there and just letting you know that here in advance. I will remind you when we get to the last couple of weeks of class, it's out there and to use it. So there it is. It is possible that if you kind of fall off track a little bit and you need to take an incomplete, we can talk about that as an option. Generally speaking, you need to be a student in good standing to receive an incomplete, and something bad happened to you. And I don't wish bad upon you, but I've had situations, and heck, and Jonathan, it's hard not to think about the SharePoint days when you think about that, because everybody would travel from Kenosha to Burlington for class. And then, if it was a snowstorm or something, oh my God, there were situations where we would issue incompletes. It gives you a little bit more time to finish the coursework rather than having to pay for the course again, right? So I'm mindful of that piece too. Python does become a prerequisite for a lot of other courses in our degree program. So like if you're in the AI data program, if you don't do Python, you can't take a lot of the AI courses or data analytics courses, at least not formally. If you're in the web program, this is our first programming course. So it becomes a prereq for advanced Python and a bunch of other courses as well. So it's an important course to complete. Be mindful, and I say this to anybody here that might be coming fresh out of high school, or might have this assumption that we operate like universities do. We do not. Homework is not an option. It's a requirement here. If you want to pass this class, you're not going to pass unless you do the homework. I do get people that come out of high school sometimes and they'll won't do any homework. They'll take the midterm exam, for example, and get an A. And they're like, I got an F, but I got an A in the exam. Shouldn't I be getting an A in the class? It's like, nope, you didn't do any of the work, right? The exam is just part of the points. You have to do the work. So, and that's why I have this little thing here. Homework is not optional. You must complete the homework, right? But remember, I'm helping you with the homework, so it should be easy. And that's the fun part about it. All right, you can read through those policies on your own. I don't mean to belittle them. Here's the key dates for the class. Start on September 8th, end on December 12th or 8th. Last day to drop is September 23rd, and you get some partial form of refund there. If the course is, let's say, a train wreck and you're not doing well and you think you're going to get an F, you have until November 17th to withdraw. A withdraw is better than getting an F on your college transcript. Remember, college transcripts are part of your permanent record. If you get an F on your transcript, it has a 0 GPA impact, so it brings your GPA down a lot. If you get a W, it has no impact, right? So I'll be mindful and keep an eye on like where you're at. And if we get close to that date, and I think you might want to do that, I'll let you know. Hopefully none of you will need to do that at all. The census date is the date by which you must appear in class in the session or sign in online. And if you don't appear by that date, you can be removed from the course. I just want you to be aware of that. Especially problematic if you're on financial aid or scholarships or grants or something like that, or if you're part of a special program like Start College Now or whatever. You got to show up to class, basically. There's an instructor drop period where I have the option to drop you if I wish. Rarely exercise that, but I have a few times. Midterm grades post on the 17th of October. Final grades post on the 9th of December. From there, we go to our rough course calendar. This is basically where we will be operating. You'll see that we have a bunch of different units of instruction here. And basically, as you look down the calendar here, you can see the week number, the date of class, and what topics we're talking about. And then with that topic, when the homework for that unit is due. If you start to analyze the dates, what happens is, like, for example, we're going to cover Unit X tonight. A week from now and 2 days later is when the homework is due. So that way you can come back to class next week, ask questions if you need to, and still have 2 days to finish the work. That's the way that I do it, right? So there's a chance to ask questions, and I find that a really efficient way to do things. Due dates, these are rough due dates, by the way, guesstimates. The exact due dates that I've already entered into Brightspace are in this portion of the calendar or the syllabus. This is how they're set today. These are the point values, which assignments they are, and when they're due. The point values and due dates may change. I'm just putting it out there. Most likely to change towards the end of the course. Usually my planning is pretty good. You know, I've done this a few times, so it usually doesn't vary very much. None of the extra credit stuff is listed here. Extra credit work does not have a due date, by the way. You can turn it in at any time to earn extra points. You just have to turn it in before the course ends. So this gives you, it doesn't really tell you what work you're doing, but it does show you that, how much time we're spending on each unit, and how many points you'll be earning doing the homework in those units. Generally programming assignments are about 5 points. Some are less, some are more. And then you notice, like, strategically how I have a couple 2-pointers here to use the coupon on at the end, if you wish, right? And that's a good spot to throw in, especially when you get busy. The exams are listed, participation is listed, all in total 100 points with all the due dates, right? Subject to change, but should be fairly accurate. All right, folks, that's the syllabus. What I need you to do at this point for the syllabus is to click on the title of the syllabus. That takes you into our syllabus discussion board. When you land here, you click on the title, and I can see I have at least one person that did this already. But basically, when you get into the discussion board, please go ahead and click Start a New Thread. And then you can type in whatever you want. Maybe syllabus is accurate. And then just give me a very brief little message, something like, I have read and understand the syllabus. Okay. And this is my joke. This is a joke, by the way. And I will obey. No, kid. This is my bad old guy humor, by the way. I just want to know that you received it and that you read it. If you do not complete this activity, And by the way, to complete it, you have to hit the post button at the bottom. If you don't complete this activity, I will not grade anything else you submit. So be mindful of that. I want to know that you read the syllabus and that you understand the grading policies. Once you acknowledge, then I will grade and all your other work. And if you don't, I will be reminding you, by the way. All right. So that's the syllabus, folks. We're already nearing an hour in class time, which is kind of astounding, but I do have a tendency to talk a lot. Normally, if in a live class session, if we didn't have too many people, I would do this activity. This is hidden from you guys. But what I want you to do is there is a discussion forum where you can introduce yourself, and I should add instructions here. How about I do this? How about like look at the above posting and add a thread in the discussion board. That's probably enough. All right. So, and you don't really need to say a lot in the discussion board. If you don't want to share a lot, don't. Right. I'm just putting it out there. If you want to be verbose and tell people your whole life story, that's on you. Right. You can drop in images, videos, links, whatever. If you feel like sharing your phone number or email address, you can do that too. It'll stay captured inside here. That's on you. Right. What I do encourage people to do, though, and I'm very sincere about this, is it's not a bad idea to have a friend in class, like somebody that you already know or you've been in classes with, or hey, does anybody want to form a study group or whatever. So like if you do miss a class, you can, email them and say, hey, what did I miss? That type of thing. So that's on you on what you share. Don't overshare, but it's your choice. Right. I just want to get a little bit of a feel of who you are, where you come from, and what you might know, and who you are as a human being. Right. So hopefully you have a fun time with that. That is not graded, but recommended, basically. I do have a due date on it. Or am I grading? I think I might be grading that. So, all right, do that, especially if it's graded. I'll have to double check to make sure it's graded. We're going to go through this next little section here. We're just about done with Unit 0. So I do want to talk about this little posting here, and some of you probably are okay, especially anybody that's been in class with me before. You've heard this whole spiel before. But what I tell people that are taking IT courses is people who are going to become IT professionals really need to have better equipment than normal computer users, right? Like if you were going to become a race car driver, you don't want to buy like, a Prius, you know what I mean? You want to buy yourself, something that's got horsepower and capability. Because if you don't, here's what will happen. If you are working on low level equipment, you will probably get frustrated. Things will take a long time, maybe not initially, but as you progress in the program, you will probably get increasingly frustrated. So what I recommend are some basic hardware specs to kind of keep that from happening. Currently, our standard operating system here at Gateway is Windows 11 running on a Windows-based PC. And that's what we recommend for most students. If you have a Mac or a Linux box, that's absolutely fine. Windows 10 is going out of support right now. So if you're on Windows 10, you might want to consider upgrading to 11. Generally, if your computer runs 10, it'll run 11 just fine, right? And it will be more secure. Home versions of Windows are fine. However, we can provide you an education license key to unlock the professional versions of Windows, which become really more relevant as you go deeper into the programs, especially in the web program where you start to do virtualization of like Android operating systems or run other operating systems concurrently on your computer. Whatever platform you happen to be on, use an upgraded OS. Keep your operating system upgraded because that makes it the most secure, right? And that's a pretty important thing. Yeah, Jonathan, the on the hub thing is gone now. We have direct access to Azure where we download most of that software now, and I will show you where to get the license keys, and that'll be kind of an addendum thing, not really a primary thing for this class. As far as CPUs go, I recommend for most people Okay, if you're using Intel chips, 10th gen or newer is what I recommend. Right. i5, i7, i9, stay away from i3 and Celeron. Those are inferior chips, by the way. But the newest, fastest chip you can have in your computer is very helpful. AMD Ryzen chips are fine. If you're on Apple machines, any of the M series chips, what we call Apple Silicon, is fine. Um, as far as RAM goes, I have a 16 gigs is really kind of the functional minimum, especially on a PC. If you're on a Mac with the M series chips, you can actually get by with 8. How do I know that? Because I have a couple of them that only have 8 gigs of RAM and it has like an M1 or M2. Those things scream, right? And in many ways, outperform this machine, which is just crazy, with less RAM. You never would think it, but it totally is the case. If I was going to go buy a brand new computer right now, I wouldn't look at anything less than 32 gigs of RAM. So that's where I'm at on my machine. And it really does make a difference when you have more RAM on your machine. Hard drive space, at least a 500 gig. I'd like to see with a terabyte or more, a 2 terabyte perhaps, and an SSD because the speed difference is significant. Whatever computer you're using, ideally it will be capable of virtualization, meaning you can run other operating systems concurrently with your current operating system. So for example, I could run Linux on top of Windows, that type of thing. Or if I'm on a Mac, I can run Windows on top of a Mac. Macs by default all do virtualization. PCs, low-level consumer machines do not. So like you walk into Walmart and buy that like $300 laptop, it's not going to do it. Right. You usually have to get up to a business class machine where, I mean, not that you have to get into like the 4-figure range, but $800-900 usually, like a business class machine is what you want. I'm a big fan of using gaming machines for doing coding work because you also have a great graphics card and that takes a little bit of load off of your CPU. And so that's another recommendation. Make sure you have a stable high-speed internet connection at home especially when you're Zooming or just doing any of the stuff online. Computer with a camera and microphone, obviously, and most of you got that memo. The other thing that I probably should add here, and I'm a really big fan of, is having a second screen for your computer, right? And it doesn't mean you have to run out and buy like a really expensive monitor. The tip I always give people is, hey, just run down to Goodwill and just see what they have sitting there. You maybe pick one up for $25. The second screen doesn't have to be as good as your primary screen. But what is really useful when you're like doing this kind of a class is you can put Zoom and all the stuff that I'm doing on the second screen, and then you can code on your main screen, right? And just fair warning, if you've never done 2 screens on a computer, once you go 2 screens, you're never going back. Right? Then you're going to be like 3rd screen, 4th screen, 6th screen, wide screen, tall screen, whatever. But it really does make a difference when you're coding because it allows you, and under most normal circumstances here, like right now I'm using 2, but sometimes I have a 3rd one hooked up and it's like, like codes over here, emails over here, YouTube or whatever is up there, while I'm working, or my video game or whatever is going on. And Damien, you're totally overachieving, but I totally appreciate it at the same time, right? And that's really kind of the way to do it. Software wise, make sure a modern operating system that you have. Usually web developers, a variety of browsers available. Office suites, which are available for free of students. We'll talk about all this stuff as we go. Microsoft Office is available for free and it is installable if you wish. You can also run it in the browser. The Google App Suite's attached to your email account, and a lot of students prefer that. And the reason we need an Office suite, real frankly, in this class is because we do screenshot documents. And I will show you how to do all of it. No need to do it all right now. And any software you need for class will be available free of charge. All right, we're an hour deep already. This will be a normal thing. We're going to take a 5-minute break. So unit 0 is basically complete. There's a little thing about Zoom etiquette here, but you can read that on your own. So I'm going to call this video complete, and this is my standard closing. This video ends here.